Okay, we're at 9 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We have, Emily just told me we have about 43 people who have logged in online, and we have far fewer than that who are here with us face-to-face. In fact, if it wasn't for our assessment accountability stuff, I'd feel really lonely down here. But thank you for coming in, and I know the testing window is about to open for the spring statewide computer adaptive testing, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions that those of you who are participating online or here in face-to-face have. And we're going to begin with the Kahoot, which again is, these questions come from our previous month's AD Directors meeting, things that I've taken out, and then also questions that our agency receives during the month. We think, oh, this might be a good thing just to review with everybody. So if you'd like to join the game and haven't joined yet, we've got 10 of you on. You'll see on the screen the code to join. It looks like we're missing some of our longtime players. The Grinch and Rudolph aren't with us today, or they've changed their alias. They don't want to develop a reputation. Could be. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and begin. Emily, if you'll start that. Again, we just have 9 questions. How will a growth score be calculated with the new science assessments? This was discussed a little bit, and I know there are some questions out in the field about this as we change standards, assessment items for 6th, 7th, and 8th. We're using the student growth percentile, and those who are heavily involved in psychometricians, they don't have very many concerns with the way that that's being done. All right, let's go on. Question number 2. Badger Boo. Action research toward equity for multilingual learners is, this is something we discussed in one of our slides, actually a couple of our slides last month. All right, so that one was a little trickier. If you'll go back to your slides from the previous month, you'll learn more about that, and I don't know if that's going to be discussed more today or not, but it's a new tool that is available through WIDA for professional learning. All right, let's go on to question number 3. Badger Boo's getting a bigger lead. Copying writing prompts from SAGE Benchmark and Interim into Utah Compose. It's not allowed, allowed with restrictions. This is something we brought up last month. It's something we've seen and just wanted to talk about that. And 100% correct. For those of you in the field, we had some applause here from some of the staff in assessment accountability. All right, let's go on. Can a student exit a test in the middle of a cluster and return to that spot at a later time? This one's a little tricky. I did want to have some discussion about this one again. We talked about it last month. But your students will be starting to take these tests shortly. And we're about split down the middle. Scott, I believe you're going to talk about this more directly later on today. And so I'm not going to spend time on it right now, but just make a note. This one's a little tricky. It has to do with at what point in the clusters they exit the test. And again, Scott will answer questions. And so next month, maybe we can have 100% on this. All right, let's go to our next question. Bees has jumped up with a big lead. The new grade 3-8 CAT will be called SAGE, same as this year. SAGE 2.0 will have a new name, but is undetermined right now. We don't know if it will have a new name. The answer is it will have a new name, but we're working through a process with a professional company. We're on about step 3 of that. We sat down and they did some work with us and trying to get an understanding of what the assessment does and how it's different from the previous assessment. They've also contacted some of you in the field to interview you and talk to you about that, including some parents and teachers. And then they've brought in a list of names, probably 50 names they started with. That list has gradually been narrowed down, and we're down to 3 names possible right now. And we hope that within the next week we'll be able to announce what that name will be. All right, let's go on. Chocolate cake's coming up. I want chocolate. I'm rooting for chocolate cake. The 17-18 statewide CAT science assessment is an operational field test year. This is an important distinction to make sure that we have the test itself for those grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th, is operational field test. The other grade levels, when they submit, when they finish that test, it'll be just like previous years. They'll give score, all of that, but we have those grades, new standards and new assessments that are linked to those standards. And so there's a process to be able to provide the scores to the student and also to the school that will take some time. That's being discussed tomorrow in the assessment accountability meeting of when we're going to be able to release accountability reports in the fall. We'll keep you posted on that. All right. Bees, chocolate cake still in the running. Student scores will be available at the conclusion of the SAGE science test. This is related to the previous question as a hint. So yeah, we have 4 of you that got that right. Those scores will be available except for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So if I'm a 4th or 5th grader, a high school student, when I take the science test and hit submit, my scores will be available instantaneously in the same manner they were last year, just those 3 grades. And so communicating that to your field probably is important. All right, do we have any more questions? I can't remember what number we're on. Me has come out of nowhere. The WIDA paper test materials should be returned. This was in one of our slides from last month. And the majority of you didn't get that right. Unless April 1st is as soon as possible, right? And it'll be talked about as well. But last month we talked about as soon as possible to return those. And Megan will discuss that more. Okay. Have more questions? Maybe one more? Individuals responsible for proctoring the SAGE should be trained with the TAM as well by, this is a tricky one. March 20th. Wonderful. The majority of you got that right, which is the beginning of the testing window. Okay. And me is the winner. Chocolate cake, who I was rooting for, 2nd place. All right. Thank you. Emily, will you pull up our PowerPoint slides? As you guys know, I like to start with a quote each month. Tells you a little bit about how I think about things. I like to not read big, long journals and research articles. I like to have prompts to think about and to get my mind working. And this one, I was looking for one directly related to assessment this month. And this one is actually related more to the educators among us and within us, from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I think all of us can think of somebody in our lives who was able to take something that we thought was hard for us to do or maybe even impossible for us to do, and they were able to assist us in a way that made that possible and even seem easy. And that's the goal. Again, one of the goals of education is that we are able to do that for the students that we see, and assessment is just there to support that process. And I think it's always a good reminder to balance assessment. It gets a lot of publicity. A lot of people have strong feelings about assessment, and I try to remind people in every setting I'm in, assessment is just there to support and support instruction for that purpose. We did the AD review, so now let's talk a little bit about this high school assessment. This RFP has been ongoing 15 months, I believe, that we've been involved in this. And this is the Utah code that is the underlier of this assessment that we've selected. So it has to be predictive of the student's college readiness, and it has to provide a growth score, not between 8th and 9th, but between 9th and 10th grade, not between 10th and 11th, but specifically in the code between 9th and 10th. So again, 14 or 15 months ago, this process was started. There was a writing committee. The RFP was written. It was released. We received multiple bids. And I want to talk just for a minute about the process of the RFP, because it was created in a way that I've never been involved in an RFP before. So because we didn't want to have the RFP writing process be the restrictor, the determinant on what came out, we wrote it in a way that allowed for vendors to submit 3 types of proposals. They could submit an off-the-shelf proposal, meaning a test that you could just go, any state could buy and say, here's our proposal to meet this statute. You could submit a custom build proposal, so a lot like Sage, AIR did with Sage, that it was the items would be custom built, it would be very unique to Utah. Or you could submit a hybrid version that would have some elements of an off-the-shelf product and some elements of a custom-designed assessment. And the committee that was charged with reviewing these saw proposals in all three of those categories, and then they had to score that and get the top vendor in each of those categories to the surface. And then the difficult part came, because usually in an RFP, that's all you do is you determine who's the top score, right? This committee then had to determine which of those three was the best value for the state of Utah out of the three different types of proposals. And that decision was made, and ACT Aspire Hybrid, so they submitted as a hybrid proposal. And this is Pearson that promoted this, this option for us. And that was what was selected. So let's talk a little bit about this. They were notified yesterday, so we are at the early stages of trying to, we'll start the contract work here shortly, but it'll be an end-of-year assessment instead of end-of-course. So that's something that's pretty significant, right, compared to what our 9th and 10th grade teachers and students have been experiencing before. It can be administered as individual subject test or as a battery, and we'll talk more about that as we try to define what Utah is going to do, but the test itself has those elements. The proctoring is much more flexible than if we had selected pre-ACT, or even the ACT itself, as you know, is very rigid on how the test has to be proctored, establishing who can get accommodations for the test. ACT Aspire has much more flexibility than that. It will have a time component. Part of the committee's work, they really felt like if our goal is to prepare students to be predictive of their college entrance test, which in our case right now is ACT, a lot of students, the very first time they take a timed test is actually the ACT. And so there was a strong feeling among that committee that this test also be timed, which would be different than what our students currently experience in 9th and 10th grade. And then it will include a certain number of Utah Core-aligned assessment items. So this is that hybrid portion. And I put certain number because I don't know that number. When they presented to the committee, they kind of talked about it maybe being about a 50-50 split. 50% of the items would be Utah items, 50% ACT items. So there'll be some combination of that, and that's what makes it a hybrid assessment. Again, it still has to go back to those two pieces of statute, that it's predictive of their ACT score and that we can get a growth score between the 9th and 10th grade. But as we move forward, what that means then is the items that our students are experiencing in 9th and 10th grade this year, that have for the last 4 years, some of those items will be included in this hybrid tool. Get to the next slide here. So the ACT Aspire itself has 5 subtests, and I've put writing out to the side because I don't know what the direction from our board is going to be in relationship to writing. If they're going to want us to also include writing because it's part of ACT Aspire, or if they have strong feelings about writing, like they did with the 9-10 this year, where they directed us to remove writing. So that's unknown to me, but those subtests or those content areas are part of their battery that are included in ACT Aspire right now. They can offer multiple choice, constructed response, technology-enhanced items, similar to what our students face right now. It is an online assessment delivery, but they have the ability to provide paper-pencil delivery for certain circumstances. And then they do have, their product itself offers interim and classroom assessments. It's important to note that the amount of money we have to purchase this 9-10 assessment is limited. So as we work through this contract and the final steps on the best and final offer with them, we will be able to determine if we're able to offer either of those items to our teachers. So that's unknown of whether that will be available, but I wanted you to know that there's a possibility that we would have those moving forward, and we'll keep you posted as we move onward. And then the contract, the statement of work development, we'll begin that immediately. I received it, they were notified last night. I got an email from Pearson this morning, and we'll set up a conference call and start to work with that. I will tell you that as we work through that, my personal preference would be to involve assessment directors in that in any way that I can. to make sure that we avoid making mistakes or that we don't manage that in a way that impacts schools in a negative way. So some of you may be contacted by my office, depending on what the purchasing office upstairs allows me to do, to be involved in helping us answer some of the detailed questions related to the implementation of this new product. Al? Oh, let me.
It's maybe a question and a comment, and that is, because there'll be tension on where you put different emphasis based on budget and time. And it just would be nice if there could be I don't know if it would be called an interim, but like a practice test that would be available for students, because I'm thinking of the time factor. That is going to be I think it's a good shift, but it will be a shift. And if there has to be maybe less original items proportionally to help get that there cost-wise, I guess those would be some of the dynamics of, how much weighting of original items or items we've already built that would align, that would save cost. But I don't know a full interim, but it would just be nice if students had a practice form that would be the full battery, that they could get a score as we kind of go through it.
And do you see that practice test then being available to be administered at any time the LEA or school? Okay. One of the things we've seen that really seems to become the most popular of our statewide assessment system are the benchmark tests. I don't know if you would concur with that, with the work you do. The benchmark tests seem to be being utilized quite heavily since we've been able to implement those. So I don't know if we can work something like that where we get those short testlet type instances for them to use. But we'll keep you posted as we begin the work with them. But that's a big announcement in the assessment world, right? Because that's a pretty significant change in what we've had for the last 4 years and then this spring as well. The communications milestones. So again, on rebranding our 3rd through 8th grade assessment system to make sure that we're clear to our community and our stakeholders that the ways that this test is the same to what they experienced previously and the ways that it's different, right? Because our previous, when we used the term SAGE before, it could have referred from anywhere from 3rd through 11th grade. And that's no longer the case. So that's part of the reason a rebrand is important for us. And so just a little bit of update on the timeline. Again, by the end of this month, we should have a name. We've also begun communications with Questar. Once we have the name, we can get our customized URL, our splash page. The company we're working with, BWP Communications, will help create our product, or what they call collateral creation there. Those would be flyers, handouts, video content, social media posts, as we try to move forward, again, providing clarity to our stakeholders. The things that are the same as the assessment items are the same. They're still Utah-created assessment items that have been through the full process of vetting. The data associated with those, it still has longitudinal comparability value. So there's things that are the same and things that are different, and this campaign will be to try to clarify that in the field. Any questions for me? We have a board meeting going on, and I should apologize because being new here, I didn't realize we're not supposed to schedule meetings on the same day as a board meeting. Assessment directors have been meeting on the 3rd Thursday since I was a little kid, I think, right? And so when I saw that conflict, I thought, well, I don't want to disrupt, because you guys will build your schedules to try to accommodate that. So I had to apologize to leadership upstairs, and I'll apologize because the parking may be, I don't know if the parking's bad right now out there, but that's part of my issue, and we won't do that again. We'll make sure we avoid those. But
is the communication milestone for the 3-8 or the college predictive measure? And are they both being rebranded at the same time, or how will they interplay?
That's a great question. The work we've got in our scope of work for BWP is just focused on 3 through 8. So the communications that's going to have to happen regarding the Utah ACT Aspire is going to have to come out of our office and the communications people we have here. So that's a great question. Any other questions from me before I run upstairs to, oh, online? Okay, you can get it? Okay. All right, well, it's sure a pleasure to be with those of you who are here face-to-face. Sometimes I feel like I'm grounded always. I'm in my office. I don't get to see anybody. And so it's great to be with you today. And also those of you who are participating online, thank you for your time. And I expect we'll be able to answer many, if not all, of your questions. Both ones that we started last month. There were some questions that were brought up and concerns that were shared, and we'll address those as we go on, and then any new ones. So, Kim, we'll turn the time over to you.
Somebody wants to know if the ACT Aspire will work with Chromebooks. That was the question.
Okay. I would, oh, we're getting a thumbs up from Jared. I believe that it will.
Yeah.
The question was the Chromebooks and ACT Aspire. And we hope it to be called Utah ACT Aspire. We're still working on branding rights and copyright rules, right? But we expect it'll be.
Okay, I'm your human calendar reminder for, no, I haven't said anything yet. What? I will. I'm your human calendar reminder. So test administration reminders. Really quickly, remember, as you did on the Kahoot test, that all testing ethics and test administration trainings have to be done by March 20th. So if you have new staff members that haven't come in, please make sure that you get that handled. Please make sure you take roles and keep the roles, because we will be using those for tested and when we do observations. Just a quick reminder, Tide is actually offline today. We sent this out in the AD memo, but Tide is offline today. They're doing some reset work, so today is the day. So if you've tried to do anything with Tide today, it's not there. And we set that date when AIR asked us. We felt like today was better than trying to do it like Monday, where everyone's frantically trying to get ready for the 20th. So that's kind of what's going on. So that's with Tide. And I'll just add this really quickly. We don't have a slide for this because I just found out about this yesterday. But Utah Compose will be down on March 26th from about 8 until 2 o'clock. They're doing a bunch of enhancements, and there's no way they can do it. So March 26th, and I'll put this in the AD memo as well, but while we're talking about downtime, just so I don't forget, March 26th from about 8 until about 2 o'clock. They're hoping to have it done even before 2, but Utah Compose will not be available that day. Really quickly on spring test administration, please make sure you're following your summative testing plan. Even though the window opens on March 20th, you are required to follow your testing plan. So we've had some districts go, oh, we want to change our dates. You remember, it counts 8 weeks back from the last Monday of school. So if you don't have school on Memorial Day, you don't count that Monday, you count the Monday before, for those of you who that applies for. Yep. Yes, Utah Compose is here from June till June 30th, 2019, and we will be submitting a new RFP, hopefully, if the board approves it, for next year to keep some kind of online. We're committed to having some kind of online writing tool. So that's my goal. Whether we, but that's kind of our plan. But yeah, we have Utah Compose all next year. So thanks, good question. Another thing to just remember is make sure you verify and check with your school testing windows. For those of you in districts, where sometimes schools will send you a testing window that's completely outside of your plan. Remember, that's your responsibility to say, I'm sorry, I don't think so. So that's part of it. And by the way, I want to point out this cartoon because when I found this made me laugh out loud. So please enjoy this. It just says, have you tried opening, this is low-tech support, have you tried opening the back and emptying the pencil shavings? Because sometimes that's what we feel like. Really quickly, spring assessment observations. Just so you know, you would have gotten an email from both myself and Jared. But here are the people that are the districts and/or schools that were selected. We're going to be visiting Daggett, Tintic, Beaver, San Juan, Utah Virtual Academy, Utah Connections Academy, and Promontory School of Expeditionary Learning. Those are who we selected for assessment observations this year. Remember, for those of you who are in those districts, if you haven't sent me the email with your suggested dates and times, I need those from you as soon as possible. I have heard from both San Juan, Utah Virtual Academy, and I think that's it. Oh, and also Utah Connections Academy sent me some questions. But everybody, we really need that information. Jared and I are trying to coordinate schedules so that we can make sure we can get out and get that done when it's convenient for you. And that is time for Jared.
Okay, I just have this one slide to talk about today. There should have been an attachment that was sent out with this information. Actually, the picture, whatever you want to call this, the screenshot is inaccurate here because I made a quick change before it was sent out last night. We wanted to include some things that are up and coming to kind of help you see what's happening. You'll see those that are in highlight, as you can see here, are tentative. We're working to keep those dates as final as possible, but there could be changes as we move through those. So this is kind of as we're transitioning from SAGE to whatever the name is that we've kind of been mentioning already. If you have questions on this, you can please email me, let me know, call me, whatever, and we can talk about that, but just wanted to give you a heads up on things. Any questions now? Okay. Turn it over to Tracy.
Okay. All right, so the DLM UL window is open. It opened on Monday. And just a reminder, DLM is ELA and math. UA, right, is still science. Reminder of what has to be completed in order for teachers to get in and testlets to be delivered. Teachers have to do that DLM required Moodle training. They have to accept a security agreement and fill out the first contact survey on students. That is bolded because that is what will stop testlets from being delivered to the educator portal for students. So that has to be completed on students in order for testlets to come down. And then you also need to download and update Kite client on all devices that students will be testing on. Just as a reminder, students will receive 5 to 7 testlets per subject. And there is a way for your teachers and yourselves to help monitor that. So when you get into that test management tab and you click on a school, it will load your test sessions, and then you do get a testing progress window, and your teachers do that too. So if teachers are curious how many testlets do my kiddos take, how many have we done, you do get that testing progress window in there. Setting special codes for DLM. So one, I've had a lot of questions around this. Teachers still have to complete that first contact survey to get a testlet to deliver in order to set a special code. Okay, so that's the key there. Your teachers still have to upfront that work. Okay, once that's done and the first contact survey is completed and your test session drops in, when you get into test management, teachers can't set special codes, right? That's district roles in Educator Portal. You click on the test session name, which is in blue, and it will drop you into another menu. And if you scroll all the way to the right, remind me which one's the highlighter thingy. Oh, it doesn't work. So this special circumstance code will pop up on the far right side, but teachers won't be able to set that, okay? But the catch is they have to complete the first contact survey still on students and get that testlet to deliver. Okay. Oh, no, that is a great question. Is that from Tara Lynn? Tara Lynn, will you please email me and Emily and I will get with you. Does anybody else know of anything that's if students have started testing? Okay. All right, we'll look into that. Thank you. A few DLM extracts that you can use, or whoever it is that you may have helping oversee your DLM to help monitor your testing. If you click in on the reports tab in Educator Portal and click on this download extracts, you can look and see at training status, which teachers haven't completed their training, which teachers still need to do a security agreement, you can go in and get a report, view a report of who's completed first contact surveys. And then you also can monitor your test administration as well. And that accessibility profile lets you know if there's any supports that maybe have been designated for your DLM students that you might want to be aware of. So you do have some self-monitoring reports in there that you can look at for DLM. Okay, SAGE accommodations. The window opens, March 20th? So just a reminder, these would be 7 accommodations that actually have to be triggered or enabled or turned on, right, in TIDE for a student. So Braille, you don't have to turn anything on for calculation device, right, for 6th grade students only. Large print or standard paper, scribe, sign language and visual representation, which is our manipulative, so you don't have to do anything for that. If you have students using scribe, right, you need to notify me. And if you have anybody that is looking at doing large print or standard size paper with SAGE, please notify me as well so we can kind of talk through what that looks like for those kiddos. So, and then it's just a reminder that those accommodations, those are those 7 accommodations that actually have to have the special code accommodated set for students, okay? So all the other accommodations in there are resources to all students, so you don't have to consider that assessment accommodated for SAGE purposes, right? But those 7 are the ones, or these 7 are the ones that need to have that accommodated code. And a reminder, those resources and all accommodations are in the accommodation policy that you can find on the webpage, pages 28 through 29 are those tables. Okay. Students may have some of these resources and should have some of these resources set in their IEP as accommodations, right? But for SAGE purposes, they're not considered accommodations. Does that make sense? Okay. Scribe request. There's an updated form this year. We've added a component just asking for a brief description around how Scribe is being used in the classroom this year, just to gain a little bit more information for ourselves. So please send those in. I have had accommodation or Scribe requests starting to come in. I am hoping to have the ones that I have completed and sent back by Friday for you. But just a reminder, those do need to be set in. If you have students using that voice recognition or any of that speech dictation devices, that has to be a third party, right, not internet-based applications. Please make sure that they have tried those devices on the training tests, right? You have to go in and enable permissive mode. And part of the reason why you have to send in that Scribe request is because for the summative, myself, Jared, or Kim have to be the ones to turn on permissive mode for that student for the summative. Okay. And just reminder of some resources, that accommodation policy you can find on the webpage, and you can also find the updated Scribe request forms, guidelines, and there's also interpreter guidelines if you have any kiddos doing sign language with interpreters. Questions? Okay.
Okay, I'm super quick today. I am just here to let you know that we still have 2 more KEEP trainings occurring. We had one on Monday that went very well. We have 2 on March 19th. So from 10 o'clock to noon, it's just a webinar, so it can be reached anywhere. There we go. And on March 19th from 1 to 3, if your staff or personnel are not able to make either of these, because this one is recorded, it can be played at any time. So your personnel could be potentially trained at any time that works for your LEA. Register on Midas, and this is your course number. Remember, all teachers that are administering this test must be trained prior to administration. And we are printing one time one student material for each teacher that comes to the training or each member of your personnel that comes. We did have a printer problem when we got them back. They had not followed directions very specifically, so we are reprinting, and we'll ensure that you have your booklets that you need before the testing window opens. In fact, we should have them ready to roll out by the end of this month. And then Sid has a little bit more information regarding KEEP administration to share with you as well. If they attend via Midas, everyone will get it. Everyone at every LEA will get enough booklets. The same amount of booklets that we made for the entrance, we are making for the exit, so that the educators that are giving these will have them. Whether it's us driving them around or mailing them, they will get to you. It will be great.
We're hoping that they'll be ready by the literacy directors meeting next week and we can pass them out then. But if they're not ready at the literacy directors meetings, then we will be driving around or mailing them, depending on how far you are our way. So one thing I wanted to mention was from last month, we talked about the KEEP administration and who could administer the KEEP test. So as we discussed some of the pros and cons and the issues that a couple of you brought up at the last meeting, we determined consistency was going to be best. And as far as what we have, consistency with the message that we've had throughout the year. So at this point, we're still requiring a certified teacher to be the administrator for the KEEP assessment. It's part of what we've covered in our training and we'll continue to cover in the next 2 trainings. But we do suggest 4 different models for how to administer the KEEP. So the first would be to do a student or 2 each day during each session. So the kindergarten teacher could pull out a student or 2 during the entire month of the last 4 weeks and test 1 or 2 students each day from each session of kindergarten if you didn't want to use one of the other options. Another option would be to provide a sub for the teacher for a few days, which we don't have funding to cover that, so that would be funding that you would have to cover in your LEAs, which we understand that's a hardship at this point. The other option is to dismiss the students part of those 12 days that are legislated that kindergartner students don't have to attend. So you could dismiss the students and administer the assessment during that time. And there's a 4th option that I can't remember off the top of my head. My computer's open. Do you want to look on my computer, or do you remember? Oh, that's right. So we had some districts that went around, thank you, that have like, people from their district office or other places that are testing. I think that's what Cash was doing. Is that what you guys are doing, Cash? Have a testing team that's going out and testing the kindergarten students. So there are options available. We are going to be revisiting this summer as far as administration rules and who could administer the KEEP and looking to see about changing that and making it more similar with DIBELS and how that rolls. But for this point and for the exit for this year, it will still be administered by a certified teacher.
So as far as registration, we had someone ask a question regarding they had an educator try to register and were denied. It was closed at one point. We'd reached capacity, but we opened it up to 150, I think, more participants, so it's up to a 250 limit now. So if someone tried to register and wasn't able to, tell them to try again because we've broadened the capacity of those that can attend now. Yes.
Yes. Oh, so not for the exit. It has to be a certified teacher for this year. In the summer, we're going to be revisiting that and hopefully changing that for next year. But we felt consistency with the message of what we've said from the beginning of the year. And as far as with kindergarten teachers knowing the assessment and changing things at this point in the year, we didn't feel like that was fair. But we are going to be revisiting that and looking at that again this summer. Questions? All right. ACT.
Okay, we survived February 27th. That was a good day. There were no major disasters. The internet didn't go down. Amazon didn't crash. I was very happy. So thank you all for the good work that you did to make ACT run smoothly. It was a smooth administration across the state, and I appreciate the work that everybody put in. So we're going to talk about more ACT stuff because it's not over. So we've got some more dates and deadlines, some online testing feedback. We had several schools that used online testing this year, and there have been a lot of questions about, well, how did it work? How did it go? Basically, do we dare try it next year? And so we've collected some feedback from some of the schools that did online testing, and I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. Question online? Makeup materials should be arriving. So question was, do you know when we should receive makeup materials? The answer to that is that they should be arriving this week. If you need specific information, my favorite answer always is call the ACT help desk because they can actually look up the shipping information. And if you need the number, it's on the ACT website, or I have it memorized. It's 1-800-553-6244, extension 2800. State code 45. But they'll be able to look that information up for you, but it should be arriving this week. We're going to talk about test scores also, which becomes the next big question. We've completed this. Now when are the test scores arriving? This little comic I included on here because it has to do with miscommunication. And one of the important things that when we're talking about what do your ACT score reports mean is that those scores are interpreted for what they are and not for what they aren't. So this has a picture of some aliens who've just come off the spaceship, and they have this thing sticking out of their head that the farmer, he makes this assumption. What's the assumption that he makes? What are those things? They're hands. And so what do you do with a hand when you meet somebody? You shake it, right? So the caption is that he inadvertently dooms the entire Earth to annihilation when he grabs, in an attempt to be friendly, he seizes the leader by the head and shakes vigorously. So in interpreting our scores, when we talk about that, we want to make sure we're not dooming our students and parents to a lifetime of distress due to interpreting their score reports incorrectly. Or maybe correctly, and they'll be happy forever. So, important dates, things that are coming up. So by now you should have returned all of your materials back to ACT, including your accommodated test materials. The pickup for that started yesterday on Pi Day. They will attempt to pick up 3 times for your accommodated testing materials. If you need an additional pickup time, you can call ACT and set that up. Receipt deadline is March 23rd. If you have things still hanging out at your school by then, or they're in transit but not received, they will not be scored. So it's important to make sure that you get those materials delivered to ACT on time. You should also have ordered your testing materials for makeup testing. And if you have new students who are going to be testing at your school, those students need to be enrolled in Pearson Access Next by March the 20th, which is coming up sooner than we think. With those students who will be testing, they need to complete the non-test portions prior to the 20th. So you cannot complete the non-test portions on the same day as the test, just like with the original test. And then you will be administering any makeup test sessions. This will be happening on the 20th for paper testing on the standard testing. And then for the accommodated testing, it's the 20th to the 26th. Then, if you still have some stragglers, there's one last opportunity, and that's the emergency test date. That test date is April the 3rd. So you'll need to complete the emergency test date non-portions by the 2nd. Order your materials, make sure those students are ready to go so that when April the 3rd arrives, those students who need to take the test on that day are prepared to go. By the way, this link in here, ACT Schedule of Events, is a great detailed resource of all of this information about which testings are happening when the deadlines are. I kind of put out summary items when I send things. I don't include all the nitty-gritty details, otherwise the emails would be even longer than they are. So I recommend going to the schedule of events to find those details. So the next question that comes up, what's next year? Here's next year. So 2019, we start on the 20th, which is a Wednesday. That's because we have President's Day on Monday. A question came up a couple of times, well, why is it in February? Why is it this week? That's our spring break week. That's this thing. That's that thing. The answer is that ACT gives us 3 date options to choose from, an early, a mid, and a late. Mid interferes with our SAGE and our new, whatever, well, the new not going to be called SAGE, and the new not going to be called whatever it's going to be called, test. And the late overlaps a time block when a lot of schools are done with school. So we choose the early one. So that's why we choose that one. So, and Jared? And part of it is making sure we get reports and scoring in a timely manner when that's needed. Question? So question is there a place we need to enter information for students who have opted out of ACT? And the answer to that is no, not at this point in time. But you may want to keep those forms. I would keep them for a year, just in case there's a question or something that comes up. All right, any questions about this test window for next year? Okay, we have songs. I'll tell you the theme here in just one moment. And I'll answer a question online while I pull up songs. ACT Aspire 9th and 10th, are these the same dates? Jared, I doubt it, but we don't have that set up yet. Yep. Yeah, they just found out yesterday. We have a lot to talk about, but no, it won't be the same dates as far as we know. It'd be unlikely that it would be the same dates as the actual ACT. But as soon as we know, we'll be sure and let you know. Okay, this is the song. The theme this time, courtesy of my youngest daughter, is Disney movies. So I'm looking for the name of the movie and the connection to the material that we just talked about. Possibly, if it's going to play without an ad. Oh, it's going to play an ad. Sorry, just a moment. Technical difficulties. While we're having technical difficulties about an ad for spa treatments, does anybody have any other questions? Okay. Good. Here we go. Okay. Mary Poppins. What's the theme? What's the connection? No, it is not medicate your kids before the test, but that was a sort of logical conclusion. Okay, so once you know testing is coming up, any other ideas? Sugarcoat it. sugar helps to accept the news, right? Eat some chocolate. So prepare your students. It's going to come up. It's coming back. It doesn't go away. That's the rough connection. Thank you. Yes. I don't sing. And I don't know. Do you sing? Maybe Kim sings. Okay. I sing in the shower and in the car, and to embarrass my children loudly while we're driving down the road and the windows are open. Okay, so next part, let's talk about online testing. This year we had 26 schools that represented 16 different LEAs throughout the state who did at least some online testing. There were some schools that tested all of their students online, some who tried it out, 1 class, 2 classes, to see how it went. So that's out of 223 schools, represents 11.7% of our school population did at least some online testing. We had 3,939 students that tested out of almost 43,000 students. So that represents about 9% of our total student population that tested online this year. So with that information, I sent out just a really quick set of questions to some of the ADs of schools that represented either the largest bodies of students who tested or LEAs that had a large geographical area for students who tested online. These were some of their replies. So on the why did you choose to test online versus paper, a larger testing window came up a couple of times. Much of their testing was already computer-based. This was a theme that recurred. Students were used to testing online. They've seen online testing through SAGE. They've done it in other things that they do, maybe in their classrooms with CBAs or through their textbook-based materials, things like that. The writing portion was done on the computer instead of paper pencil. That was another one. And this one came up in almost every response. There was less paperwork to track down after the test. So you weren't sorting and alphabetizing and tracking down booklets and things like that. Overall observations, what did people think? This one was also universal. Requires more prep work up front. You need to make sure that all the proctor caching is done, that things are organized with the tech ahead of time. However, and this one was also, almost everybody said the same thing, that most of the students preferred it, and parents as well. Flexible testing window was a bonus. This one was for a school that had a large geographical area. And then the students liked it because they preferred typing to writing by hand. One person member mentioned that there was some resistance from staff initially because it was a change. They knew how to do the paper, and this represented doing something different. Another benefit that people liked was being able to practice using the TestNav, although there's also a comment that TestNav is old software. ACT needs to get with the times. So hopefully they will. But in the meantime, that is something that students can practice. So with the, would you choose to do it again? This is a big question. I didn't receive a no out of all of the people that I surveyed. Everybody said yes. And with planning and administration, these are the reasons why. They said it's much smoother on the actual administration day. And then these are some of the comments. Everybody agreed that they would do, it went well, so they would do it again. And they said when it is organized well, it is just easier to manage. Yes, so question is, will you ask the question again? Yeah, and we'll see if it ends up being that discrepancy. So this is a question about how long the scores take to get back and if there's a discrepancy. So at the end of the entire process, I'll send out a survey and just gather everybody's feedback across the board. Question? So you needed to put them in the order as the same order that they were required to be in according to seating charts and your the packing list information. Some schools alphabetized the testing rooms. So as long as they followed the instructions in the testing administration manual, then they're fine. Advice, if you're considering moving to online ACT administration, one piece of advice is make sure that you have a testing coordinator who is prepared to handle the organizational aspect of it. And find somebody who has done this before so that they can mentor you. And I really like this idea. And one suggestion, you'll notice there's a little asterisk by this one. A suggestion came up, what if we had a day where somebody actually came and showed people how do you set all of this stuff up? Like actually walk people through it, not the traditional, here's your PowerPoint slide, go through it all. You know, it's all in this little nifty book training. And so one of the things that I'm going to try and set up for next year is bringing in people who actually did this, IT people, testing coordinators, ADs, who can actually serve as the training people to be able to set up some examples of what this looks like. So unfortunately, my login information is different than everybody else's, so I don't have a way to do that myself unless I can convince ACT that they want to give me a dummy account, which I'm going to work on as well. But in the meantime, that's what I'm planning to do to help with those of you who would like to try doing this and have that opportunity to see what does this actually look like and to learn from people who did it last year and were successful. The other one, and this one was a universal response. Organization is key and planning ahead. Okay, name that tune too. Again, Disney. By the way, keep in mind that my daughter is 14. So these movies are thanks to her creativity. Okay, who's got it? It's Aladdin. Okay, what's the song? A Whole New World. Okay, how could that relate to what we just talked about? Online testing. Could be what? A whole new world, right? Could be misery, could be pain, could be great. Oh, okay. Test scores. Next question. How, when, and what's going to be in them? So student level reports, 3 to 8 weeks following receipt of your answer documents. Notice this is all of your answer documents. So after the testing windows are all closed, then that's when those score reports will be processed and sent back. Students will receive one report that is sent to their home address. School level reports, also 3 to 8 weeks following receipt of the answer documents. New things this year. So you know your favorite CDs that you've had for years? You don't get them. They're going away. But you're going to get some items via mail this year, like snail mail. And you're getting some things delivered through Pearson Access Next. So your larger report, your ACT profile report, that's going to be available on Pearson Access Next. So you'll be able to look that up. It will be available no later than June 20th. And so that's good news because that means that miscellaneous CD will no longer be a hot commodity item that could potentially be misplaced. So the question is, what's 8 weeks after February 27th? Let's see, February, March, April 24th. Thank you. So that's because you have testing that goes through April 3rd for the emergency testing. So then there's 3 to 8 weeks after that before all scores could be reported. So they're saying this is their absolute deadline that they will give you scores. So, and that's negotiated down from July 31st. So, which is, so we'll see when they start to show up. As of right now, our guarantee is that they'll be there by June 20th. So we're hoping before then. So this is the information for schools. Any questions on this part before I talk about move to districts? Okay, districts. Oops, wrong way. So districts, same thing, 3 to 8 weeks. All of the district materials will come through Pearson Access Next. So no snail mail items to districts. So again, no later than June 20th. The profile reports, all of those items will be available through Pearson Access Next. And they will send the testing coordinator an email that says you have reports available, and that's how you'll know that those things have arrived. So questions on that? So then the question about what do we do to understand those reports? And this may be more of an issue for students, teachers, and parents. There are some resources that are on the ACT website that can be helpful for parents and students. And when they get this report and it has bar graphs and it has information that may not be as consumer friendly, there is an infographic and a kind of an explanation guide that you can point parents to called Understanding and Using the ACT Score Report. And it's available through this Parent Toolkit link. And that's a good resource to point parents and students to as they look at their scores and they want to know, well, what does this mean? Especially since they've changed since 2015. They've changed some of the names of the tests and the bands. So for example, the math, what used to be the math subtest is now called quantitative literacy, I believe. So there's some different things in there that will be helpful for parents and students to be able to understand. And then there's also just a quick infographic that's a one-pager that you can print out as well or point people to. For educators, there are also some resources that can help. Some of the information is pretty similar to the parent information. The reporting category interpretation guide I thought was actually the most interesting of the items that were available on there, that and the technical manual. I didn't put a link to the technical manual on there, but the technical manual actually goes through why were the questions weighted and scored and created the way they are, and why did ACT actually, why do they score things the way they score things? So it's more of the, well, it's the technical side of the why and the how ACT works. Yeah. Okay, so question about how does ACT fit into accountability? So ACT comprises 11% of the college portion of the ACT, of the college and career readiness section. And it is figured based on the percentage of students who achieve an 18 composite. As far as exactly how many points that equates to, that's a great Anne Michelle question. And she is in Thailand. We all feel really bad for her right now. Actually, she's probably still on an airplane, so I don't feel bad for her. But where the graph is, I'm not sure if that's on the website or not. And Darren slipped away to the board meeting. Okay, email Anne Michelle. Another question. Educators, resources most helpful, to repeat those. This bottom one, the ACT Category Interpretation Guide. That's a white paper that was put out by ACT. It's not written for necessarily a general public consumer, but I felt like it was helpful in understanding why ACT changed their categories and what's contained in each category. And then the technical manual for the ACT test itself. And that goes over the actual scoring of the ACT, why it's scored the way it is, how it's scored, the validity, the reliability, and the statistical premises that define the way the test works. So it's more of those kind of nuts and bolts things. Okay, last one. You guys made it through the ACT stuff. This one gets sung at our house repeatedly. And I don't know if it does. And it's not Let It Go, by the way. That one got sung at our house repeatedly for a while until I banned it. This one's close to getting banned. Okay, anybody know? Name of the movie? Moana. Song is You're Welcome. Tie to this is You're Welcome. We're done. So, do you have any questions or suggestions? Please let me know. Feel free to send them to me, email me, call me, leave a voicemail, but email is the best way. Anything before we leave? Okay. Bring it over.
Okay, so I just have a couple of mathematics assessment updates. And it's mostly just about upcoming workshops that we have going on. The first one is finishing off things with SAGE. In the first week of June, the 5th and 6th, we're going to have a rubric validation workshop. We will have, I'm taking 6 to 8 participants for grades 3 through 5 on June 5th. And then June 6th is grades 6 through 8, once again 6 to 8 participants. And then the next week will be the item writing workshop for the new test that's coming up where we're going to do item development. We're still waiting to get the exact numbers that we need for the different grades on that. So as soon as I get that information, I will be recruiting people. And then just future dates coming up, we have the content review workshop in August. And then sensitivity and bias review workshop will also be in August. So if you have any teachers or district personnel or anyone that's interested in coming to that rubric validation in June to finish off the SAGE items, please have them email me. I'm putting together my listserv to send out and recruit people to work on that one with me. And then we'll progressively recruit people for the next workshops coming up. Any questions? Okay.
All right, before I get into WIDA, I had a slide just like Whitney's and it got lost in cyberspace, but Emily is going to be putting it in and sending it out. So it's also secondary language arts, SAGE, and upcoming name development.
But basically, we're pretty much done with Sage AIR development, and moving forward, it will be all Questar development. The only thing that is different from Whitney's slide is that we will be doing passage review in April, so coming up really soon. That workshop is already full, but for all the other ones, item writing, content review, sensitivity and bias, if you have any names of educators or even yourselves, if you would like to participate, please send those names to me. And again, that slide will be included, and when it's sent out, it's posted online already. Thank you. Oh, it will be posted online. So, and I'll make sure I include that information in the next AD memo as well. So now for WIDA, and it's just me because, as Rebecca said, and Michelle is just miserable in Thailand, I'm sure. So just a couple of reminders. Return of materials, it's the exact same date as ACT. So it needs to be postmarked by the 23rd, so next Friday. And if you have any questions about what kind of materials need to be returned to DRC, you can find that very easily online on the WIDA website. So you would just go to the test and school, the district and school test administrator manual. And I believe I've gotten a lot of questions on this. I believe it starts on page 29, and it lists all the secure materials that need to be returned to DRC. And basically anything with a barcode, that needs to be returned to DRC. So, but again, as we saw in the Kahoot, you don't need to wait. If you're done, send it back, please. So, but the 23rd is your deadline. And then we do have data validation coming up. So because the testing window is closed and some things may need to be changed, the data validation window, it's short, and it is on April 9th through the 13th. So you'll be able to make any data corrections in the system that you feel like need to be edited for students. And if you need any information or a tutorial, there is a link on the slide. So, you know, there's user support, but also anytime you want, call the DRC Help Desk. They are amazing, and they can walk you through any of that data validation process as well. So that's just a couple of upcoming things for WIDA, and I think that is it. Sid.
Okay, so for the Sage Spring Summative Writing, one of the big changes that we're all aware of with 9th and 10th grade writing, so if you had 9th and 10th graders complete writing before March 8th or 9th, thank you, those will be included in their overall ELA score. At this point, if they have not completed writing 9th and 10th graders, then we are done. It will not be available for them to complete the summative spring Sage. There's no writing available for 9th and 10th grade any longer, but if they completed it before the March 9th date, then that will be included in their overall ELA score. 9th and 10th graders that did not participate in writing will just have a reading score as their ELA score. We're talking next week in TAC with our technical advisory committee about how that looks with 9th and 10th grade who some have reading and writing and some have just reading as their overall ELA score. So we'll come back to you with some of the findings of our TAC committee next week after we discuss that. The other kind of big change, not really big change, but with 3rd through 8th grade and then also 11th grade with writing on Sage Summative. Remember the change this year is that they will have one essay that they participate in responding to, and it will be random which essay which genre they are responding to in that prompt. So you may have students in a certain class, some have informative and some have argumentative. We know that sometimes that may vary in the length that they're actually participating in writing because especially in the secondary grades, the informative, it says write 2 to 3 paragraphs, and then argumentative, it says write an argumentative essay. So students within a class period may be spending longer depending on which genre they're responding to in their prompt. One new change that we want to make you all aware of is AI wanted to make sure that the AI scoring on the computer scoring is correct and we're catching everything and it's matching up with the human scoring. So for this year, the first 500 responses to every prompt in every grade will be sent for hand scoring. This is not included in our 20% of hand scoring. So we just want to make sure, yes, it's scoring correctly. We want to make sure what we've seen with the benchmarks and the interims up until this point and some of the questions that we've had, we want to just clarify that everything is working correctly. So the first 500 essays for each prompt in each grade level will be sent for hand scoring. So you'll want to make sure your teachers know they'll see the code that their writing has been submitted, but they won't get an automatic writing score those first 500. After the first 500 have been scored, then we'll move into the 20%. So you'll still have the students who have the condition codes, the prompt copy match, or the duplicate text. Those will be sent for hand scoring. And then the the verification, the score verification, if we have low confidence levels, those will be sent up to 20% of our state after the first 500. Questions on writing? All right. Oh, Jared. Yes, thank you. Right, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. 11th grade is only if the 11th grade students are participating in SAGE. It's optional. We do ACT in 11th grade, but if they are participating in SAGE and in SAGE writing, they'll have one prompt, and the first 500 will go for scoring. Rebecca. Correct. ACT writing is not optional. So this is only for students who are in 11th grade that participate in SAGE language arts assessment. Okay. Thank you for those clarifications. Any other questions on writing with SAGE? Okay. Scott, science.
Okay. Hopefully the last update, at least on science clusters, but I want to put a note out there. For you guys, especially for every teacher and every LEA, if there is an issue, I am not the first contact. You need to contact the SAGE Help Desk at SAGE Help Desk at AIR.org or call the SAGE Help Desk and put in a ticket there so we can keep track of that. If people call me, I might be visiting schools, looking at administration, might not get it for a while, and if they're in a hurry, they need to go to the SAGE Help Desk. A lot of times the things they call me with are things I can't do anything about. It's an issue with the system, and SAGE Help Desk needs to be aware of that. And so if they need to call, it's 855-570-7239. Give a call there. If you called that a lot, you know that number too. Because if they call me, I'm just going to send them back to there. And so just to put that out there. And so the pause rule, this is one that caused a lot of concern in the last AD meeting. We took and started actually doing kind of like the beta testing that we do, looking at how that pause rule works, and it wasn't quite what we thought it would be. Students that log off for more than 20 minutes can't return to items already answered. On the new clusters, all of the questions on the right side of the cluster are considered one item. Okay, there might be a series of 2 or 4 or 5 questions there, but even if there's 7, it only counts as one item. So what that means is if they pause in the middle of a cluster, they haven't finished the cluster for more than 20 minutes and come back, it's okay. Those questions will still be there because they haven't technically answered the one item, right? And so they can come back the next day, a couple days later, oh, wow, they were gone, they broke their leg, that's fine. They can come back, they'll take them right back to where they left off. If they've answered all of the questions on the cluster, it won't let them come back, okay? So that's the way the system is working for us right now, and we wanted to make you guys aware of that's what's happening with clusters. Question online? What's the grace period extension? Is that the pause rule? Okay. Jared knows more about that. Jared's going to answer that question to that person directly. I had another question. Okay. Any other questions? That's my last slide. Questions? Just a really quick update on that. Like I said, I'm still excited about this thing rolling out. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this works, because this is something new, not just in our state, but in quite a few of other states, especially the other states where we have the sharing agreements. Jason? I can't just yet know. I know that it's still in effect as far as I know, but I know they're still having internal discussions on that. Whether it's going to count or not, and when it'll count, when we'll get those scores back. So I can't answer that right now. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. Expected test time for these clusters is the same as it's always been. Okay, we purposely have designed a matrix style test where we know we can't. If we had a kid get a cluster for every standard that they have at their grade level, they'll be testing for 4 to 6 hours. It doesn't work. And so we've cut that down dramatically. Kids will see between 8 and 10 clusters, and they're designed to last about 8 to 12 minutes. So your testing time should still be about 2 45, 2 50-minute periods. Okay, that's what we hope. We did a cognitive study on that, and that's what the cognitive study told us, is the students are actually finishing a little faster than we thought they would. If it runs long, it may be because they're taking less time. We have been messaging, take all the time the kids need, because this is the first year. Not every kid has seen the samples, unfortunately. We wish they had. We got it out as much as we can. We've tried to get it out there as much as we can. I've visited with the curriculum directors and told them the same thing I'm telling you. So it's been getting out there. I just don't know how well it's got. I know it's gotten out better through you, but but we're working on that. Any other questions? Awesome. I think that's the end. Say the best for last. Awesome. Go science. Okay. Emily Berry's the best. I get it. That's cool. I'm fine with that. Emily's awesome. So Emily's got some stuff for you.
My SAGE special scores or special codes slides didn't make it in, so we'll just quickly review it, but I'll put everything in the next 80 memo and just work with you guys to get that through. But so you put special codes in 2 places. There's the SAGE special codes tool and then the Data Gateway special codes. SAGE is only for current actively enrolled students in your districts, where Data Gateway should have past enrollments. Right now that's not working. IT is on it, so give that a little bit of time. It should come back up. The slides had all the special codes listed, but if you go to the accountability manual, page 34, they're all listed there. Is there any other specific questions related to special codes? So ideally, you'd start putting them now. If you put in your opt-out, the 204 code in SAGE, it'll take the tests off the student, so they won't test them. If you forget to put that in and the student starts testing, then you have to invalidate their test and then special code it for the opt-out. So if managing it now makes it easier to manage in the end. Yes. So anything put in Tide will automatically transfer to the Data Gateway within a couple of days. Anything put in Data Gateway will not transfer over to Tide. So manage in Tide as much as you can. The Data Gateway is ideal for the exit students. And just keep those up. And there's some special buttons that I'll start putting into the 80 memos, the certified codes and whatnot that's available in the Data Gateway. Those are turned on now, but you don't need them until next time, so I'll just go over that in the next few meetings.
Yeah, so because they were enrolled in your school at some point, a test has been generated for them, and Sage or AIR is reporting that back to us. And so you're just wanting to go in and say, hey, this kid, we didn't test them because they left our school beforehand, so that that doesn't come back on you. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So any enrollment that's generated a test at any point should be loaded onto Data Gateway, because AIR is sending that back to us in their nightly files. Right now, they're not showing on Data Gateway because that portion of the script broke, and our IT is working on it, figuring out why. So there's going to be a little bit more management right at the beginning because they haven't been there to manage for the school year. But as soon as it's up, you can start managing them. I'm not sure. I'll double check on that. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So my understanding is that a test generated is a test reported back. I'll double check. I don't like that. Like I said, that's broken, and so I don't know if they're going to go back and how they're going to fix it. And as soon as they fix it, I'll let you know, and I'll be able to go in and see, because right now I don't even get to see past exited students.
So for our dual enrolled students with other LEAs, in the past we have seen all tests generated, including those not for our LEA, and our schools or the other LEAs have gone in and done special coding that cause issues. Are we going to keep seeing those?
So we have business rules that are supposed to make it so the kid only gets sent to one school for a test. So if both schools are seeing it, then you guys need to work out which one is going to test the student, and then the other one needs to indicate through the special codes that you're not testing the student at your school. Does that make
So part of this is it sounds like we just need to make sure from USBE we're clear and we go through all of these. I was looking at maybe making sure this data we share it at the Wednesday webinar, but that might be a little late. But we'll start sharing these in the AD memos, which is sometimes, I mean, it's helpful, but it's a little nicer to have it in person and be able to see visually. But I'll work with Emily to get responses to these, because I know what you're talking about. In the past, we have some business rules on our side, but the Sage portal did some other things, and so people from different schools would be seeing the same student and go in and try and change something when it really wasn't their place to change it, which would cause some headache on the other side. So we'll make sure to get more clarity on what's happening to help you.
So if you go into the special codes tool on Sage and mark them as excluded, the test should be taken off or not available to the student to test. Yeah. Yeah, the student will still display on the roster, but the test shouldn't be available to them. And then Emily was asking, but the special codes are displayed in the accountability manual in Appendix A, page 34. Well, I'll start getting clarification on this. I'm just barely getting into this for the year. So as soon as we get everything fixed, we'll make sure that we start really getting information out to you guys so that we're all on the same page. I think that's it. Okay. If you do have a special codes question, you can email me, emily.berry@schools.utah.gov.
Thank you for coming today. We know we appreciate the people who came down and traveled through the snow to get here to be with us, and the people online. We appreciate your coming and attending our meetings and asking questions. And please know that we are always looking for your feedback and appreciate when you give us suggestions or have concerns or issues. We love addressing them. I jokingly say that, but we want to make sure you feel supported and that you know that we are wanting to do what's right for you and your districts and charters and the students in your schools. So thank you. We appreciate your feedback, and we'll see you next month.